Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
The Word Docs acknowledge that we meet on the traditional country of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains. We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationship with this land. We acknowledge that these lands are of continuing importance to the Kaurna people living today, and we extend that respect to other Aboriginal language groups and other First Nations.
Why don't you write when you don't need money, honey? That would certainly make a hit.
Welcome back to Word Docs. I'm your host, Dr. Amy Matthews.
Hi, Dr. Amy Matthews.
Hi, Dr. Sean Williams.
Hey, we're back.
This is what happens after a break when people get sugar.
We've had some caffeine and
I've had
toffees.
a green tea. Anything could happen.
And we're also here with Dr. Alex
Hello,
Vickery
Dr. Alex
Howe.
Vickery Howe.
Oh, high energy.
Hi.
High energy today. Sean's a little bit aroused by our topic.
I might be clipping. I'm talking so loudly. Aroused,
so
did you
keen.
say, Amy? What is our topic? Why would I be
Our topic
aroused?
today is not safe for work or for young children. So if you are at work listening to this without your headphones on or you've got kids around, now is not the
If you
time.
work in a preschool or a kindergarten,
This is going to be adult content, people. Yeah, so today we thought we'd cover writing sex, but specifically talking about bad sex scenes.
Bad sex
like when it
scenes.
goes wrong.
when it goes
So not
wrong.
naughty sex scenes,
No.
but bad ones.
Not
Unsuccessfully.
dirty.
No,
Not bad. We're just talking bad.
just ugh.
We're talking about, we thought we'd go through the bad sex awards for a start. But before I start, have you guys written sex scenes?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah? Like graphic ones or just like reference?
Yes, I have.
The door is open. Are these like ones for public consumption or just for yourself?
Ugh.
No, I've written
There was like
nothing terrible.
nothing too graphic.
No, nothing terrible.
Sean?
Yeah.
Oh, the slug in the sky.
The slug in the sky.
The juvenilia of our dreams.
I should, yeah, in fact, we must do a juvenilia episode where we read from our juvenilia and then you can see how bad that was. But yeah, no, I tried erotica and a lot of my adult novels had sex scenes in them. And
Yep.
Some of them are quite explicit and some of them, well, the published ones aren't terrible, but they certainly were terrible in the first draft, I would
That's
say.
interesting. I want to hear more about that. So what do you find the challenge is when writing a sex scene?
I think there's a particular class of scene that is hard to write, and I lump sex scenes and dream scenes and action
dream
scenes
scenes
in
are hard.
together. They're really hard because they're about things that aren't cerebral,
Yeah.
and
Right.
and that's very hard to put into words.
Oh, that's interesting because I'm currently teaching my love and death topic
Mm.
and that's affective literature. So it really is, it only works if you get an emotional response and that's a whole different kind of writing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Do you find them? So I know you've written sex. I've read one of your sex scenes just recently.
Yeah, this would be Marrying Off Morgan McBride.
Correct. That
Yeah.
river must have been so cold.
Do you know that scene is in there because my friend Bronwyn Stewart, who's a writer, hi Bronwyn.
Hi, Bronwyn.
Hi, Roman.
Bron said to me when, I can't remember how it came up, after the first book, because there's not really much any sex in the first book.
There's a lot of sexual tension. Though.
Yeah.
Oh man, that hunky what is he?
blacksmith
Blacksmith. Whew.
Anyway, so it's the place is called Bucks Creek and there's a creek running through it. And Bronwyn was
Sorry,
like there.
what creek?
Bucks
Oh,
Creek.
Bucks.
Gotta pronounce that very carefully.
But Bron said to me there better be a skinny dipping scene in the next book. And I just thought, well, I'm probably not a skinny dipping scene, but I did use the creek. I did get in the creek.
Did. Good grief. Oh, chicka, wow, wow.
The McBride brothers are all beardy, aren't they?
No, not both. And most of them at some point shave it off.
Right.
Like they have both.
Is that a genre? Is that
Beardy men.
No, the shaving off of the beard.
Yeah,
that
it's
I
part of
shaved
it's
my
like
beard the other day so,
Yeah, Alex.
I think it's the
by
pretty
accident.
smart girl trope. I cut off our discussion of Alex's amazing face though. We came in today and he had shaved his beard off.
Yeah, I didn't recognise him.
Me neither.
But who's this young man?
Baby face.
So the smart.
I think that the bearded man is a little bit like the smart pretty girl movies. You know,
Like
how she
she's
takes
all
her
that,
glasses
or-
off and it's like, oh, she's so gorgeous.
Yes.
And I think that happens in romance novels sometimes, that he shaves his beard off or has a shower and cuts his hair and everyone's like, wow, he's good looking.
You're not a wild man. I like the wild man. Bring back the wild man.
Yeah. Or that I know that you're kind of, the wild man is still there underneath.
Just give him a couple of days and it'll
I have
back
written
out.
a lot of sex scenes. The Tesla Sue books had a lot of sex in them. But I don't write like long sex scenes. I find they get a bit boring. Some people write very long sex scenes, like 20 pages or more.
Yeah, that's so much.
Yeah.
And same with action sequences. How do you find things to write? So I often think of the Battle of Helm's Deep in Lord of the Ring.
Yeah.
Like Tolkien didn't write sex scenes, but he did write some really famous action scenes. And the Battle for Helm's Deep is like one paragraph, and it's 45 minutes in the film.
Yeah.
But it's one paragraph, and I often think of that you don't need to write a lot.
Yeah, well,
these
because
scenes to
people
work
use
well.
their imaginations, don't they?
They do.
That's the joy of reading, is that you kind of create it in your own head.
If they're written well.
Well, I think sex scenes are very hard to write well, pun intended. I think because it's an intimate act we all do that's kind of vaguely ridiculous but also loaded with meaning. And I think also because of erotica, like there are different kinds of literature. Like erotica is like porn in many ways, that it's there to get you off, whereas sex scenes in most books, they're not there. I mean, maybe they do, but that's not usually their primary purpose.
No.
Well, the sex scene in Marrying Off Morgan McBride is it Marrying Off? Yes.
Yep.
Is really interesting because it's not a sex scene, it's a sexual scene.
It depends on your definition of sex, doesn't
right.
it?
Oh,
Yeah.
here we go.
I mean,
yeah.
it is, you're
True.
right, because there's like it's if they're fully clothed and everything. But I have this conversation. We've got a postgrad popular romance studies research group, and we have this discussion a lot because I think there are generations of people post Bill Clinton that have definitions of full sex versus other sexual acts.
Yeah.
Whereas I think I'm a little bit broader in what I would class. I would say sex, any kind of sexual acts are kind of fallen. Because kissing is hard to write. That's a sexual act.
So that's interesting. I slipped into a preconception too, in the same way that you did before, because you said everybody is interested in sex. Not everybody is.
No, not everybody
So,
is.
so I often think about that too. You know, if you're writing a sex scene, it's got to work for people who aren't interested in sex.
Well, I think in most fiction, like I know in romance fiction, it has to move the plot forward. Otherwise, you are stepping more into romantic or erotica, where the purpose is just sexual arousal and gratification. But I think in most fiction, and particularly the fiction discussed by the Bad Sex Awards, it's got to be doing other things. Like it's about character, it's about emotional development, or it's about moving the plot forward in some way.
As Kurt Vonnegut says in his 8 rules for writing, every sentence must do one of two things: reveal character or advance the action.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And a sex scene has to do that too.
Yeah,
no
I think
exemptions
so.
for porn.
No exemptions for
God.
porn.
Is that pizza arriving or not?
Is my pool clean, pool boy?
Poor boy, tell me more about yourself.
I'm thinking of David Tennant in an interview was talking about how performing sex scenes, and then having the moment where he just looks at the rest of the crew and goes, "Is that sort of the thing we all
How
do?
people
Is that
do
kind
it? Do people do that? Am I weird?
Am I weird?" And I think it's like that when you write one too, isn't it?
Oh,
Yeah. I think you're revealing your own sexuality often. Not
Your
that
kinks.
you do everything. Yeah, and you may not, like a lot of people write kinks they aren't necessarily into. But I think it reveals a lot about the way your brain works. But I have to say other genres do that too. My brother-in-law is always talking about horror and about how do people, like, don't you feel a bit embarrassed that you're exposing that you're capable of thinking those things?
Right. Yeah.
So I think writing is very exposing because you are exposing how your brain works, like what you think about and what you think of people, and it is quite an exposing act, pun intended.
There's something interesting in these are good, these puns. There's something interesting in we're more squeamish about writing sex than probably murder, but actually the second says a lot more,
Yeah.
deep, dark and dangerous things about us.
Oh, yeah. And like ask any, woman or person of another sexuality or gender about representations of sex by straight cis men. Like, they're pretty weird. It says a lot, the way they represent sex, which is a good segue, guys.
Here we
So
go.
in 1993, the Literary Review in the UK launched the Bad Sex Awards. There was actually some kick up I saw as I was, hastily researching for this episode. There was some kick up in 2018 by Julian Goff. 2019, forgive me, by Julian Goff, who was talking about how offensive it is. Like, he was saying that past...
He was nominated,
He
right?
was nominated,
all
yeah.
butthurt.
He totally was. And he was saying the Bad Sex Award gets more coverage than any other literary prize bar the Booker and the Nobel. And he was talking about the people being nominated. So past nominees have been Stephen King, Salman Rushdie, Philip Roth. Past winners have included Tom Wolfe, who I love, Norman Mailer, Morrissey, Melvin Bragg.
All blokes.
All blokes. And then he talks about how he got nominated in 2018 for a scene from his novel Connect that was 3.5 pages long.
Oh, yuck.
And he said that most of the media only ran about 20% of it, and he finds it really unfair, and he thinks it's ridiculous. And he didn't like some of the headlines, which were ban men from writing about sex. But I'm going to read the bit that everyone shared, and I want you to tell me what you think.
Hey, should I in post put some sexy music?
Sure, do it.
Maybe we should just do it.
The part people on media shared was smaller. Here it is, guys.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm braced.
He sucks on the hard nipple. He has never done this before, and yet, no, wait, of course, it is totally familiar. It was the first thing he ever did.
Oh, no, I'm out.
not sexy.
I'm out.
Yeah, that is not, but maybe it's not supposed to be sexy. I don't know.
Maybe Gillian's never sucked on a nipple before and he's just imagining.
Well, and then he goes on to say, for millions of people, that fragment of a scene is the only piece of my writing they've ever read. Nothing I've written has been published more widely. Oh, my goodness. Wow. But they're like genuinely cringy. I'll read you some more if you want.
Yes.
Because I think, and they're pretty graphic, so again, not safe for work people. But
he bleeped her bleep while the bleep went bleep, 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 bleep.
That's somehow more offensive.
Yeah, well, this one is by a woman. This is Mary Costello from the River Capture. And this is from the 2019 awards as well. Okay, you ready?
Big year for bad sex.
Oh. He clung to her crying and then made love to her and went far inside her, and she begged him to go deeper, and no longer afraid of injuring her, he went deep in mind and body among crowded organ cavities, past the contours of her lungs and liver, and shimmying past her heart, he felt her perfection.
Well, that doesn't work anatomically.
She's dead now, right? She's dead. He's murdered her.
I'm picturing, this is too graphic, but like one of those twisty pig penises when you say that doesn't work anatomically. Like, it's just curling around all the organs.
But it's as long as a whale's penis, which is like 12 feet long. You know,
No wonder he's crying. It's like, this is it. I'm going to murder this woman with my...
And this one is from,
warped alien
I can't
penis.
pronounce it, Didier Decoing? Is that how you say it? The Offensive Gardens. I think it might have won this one.
Uh-oh.
This one is, I read this to the guys before the episode and it got quite a response. This is really graphic.
I've
so
erased
please
it from my memory, so the response
bear
may
with
come
me.
again.
The earthy taste surprised her.
Yo.
Well, when he was alive, when it swelled inside Miyuki's mouth, Katsuro's penis had tasted of raw fish, of warm young bamboo shoots, and of fresh almonds when she finally released its juices.
He's been having sex
Now
in
it was
the
insipid
kitchen.
and muddy to the tongue like pools of the temples. Oh, my God. I'm not reading anymore.
Pools of the temple.
No, I'm not reading anymore. That's just like... But I don't know that they're not necessarily to turn you on, these scenes, right? They're doing something else.
No, but I think you can write a sex scene that isn't designed to turn you on, that isn't also awful. I think you can...
I just found another one.
Uh-oh.
This one's by John Harvey. It's called Pax. Oh, my God. Sorry, I just have to get it. So her long, lean arms were spider arms. That's for you, Sean.
Oh, yeah.
While her kisses
heard this
roved
one.
and dug.
Oh.
I see it, he said. You are the female praying mantis devouring her mate. I am. You are. I shall eat every shred of you, mouthful by mouthful. Like, really?
That's, I don't know, I find that sexy.
Yeah.
Don't you? No, I do not, just for the record.
I think just the things we've learned today, cannibalism and incest aren't sexy.
No, I guess
Well, not in the hands of these authors. It's an interesting
True.
writing challenge.
Yeah.
I want a sexy cannibal scene, please. You could do it. Surely you could do it.
Sexy cannibal scene.
I'm just trying to think now because all sorts of things are done in horror and speculative fiction. I'm sure there've been some sexy cannibals.
I'm guessing there would have to be since I was going to make a bad joke about that actor, but I'm not going to.
Oh. Oh.
You know.
Oh,
yeah.
We're not talking about that.
Ooh.
Let's not give him
Hannibal
that space.
Lecter. Is Hannibal Lecter a sexy cannibal? No.
He's bloody sexy.
Well, there you go.
Whoa. When he's played by, what's his name?
Mads Mikkelsen.
Mads Mikkelsen. Speaking of bowel chicken, wow.
Is it a problem that they're being too weirdly specific in their descriptions?
Yeah, possibly.
Like once you bring in the almonds and the fish, I'm at the
spider.
markets.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, this one is from 2018. Empty my tanks, I'd begged
No,
breathlessly.
don't. No.
As she once more began drawing me deep inside her pleasure cave.
The pleasure cave. The pleasure cave.
Oh, wow.
Empty my tank.
I'm not even going to read this one. I'm just going to show Sean.
Oh, dear God. Oh.
Empty my tanks is like the Michael Bay sex scene.
I think pleasure
Blinding,
cave.
breathless, shaking, overwhelming, exploding, white God, I blank inside of my blank, throbbing like we're both moaning, eyes, heart, souls, bodies, one, blank, blank, blank.
Yeah, the blank is standing in for a 3-letter word, people.
Oh, there's several. Oh, my God. Oh.
Yeah, but I think, I think when Goff is reacting to sharing his work, actually what these are all doing is objection, right? They're abject representations of sex. So comparing like sucking on a nipple to your mother, like to being a baby and suckling at your mother, or mentioning organs or raw fish taste.
It's like my dad wrote a porno, although I think that's actually better than some of these.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, but I think no one wants to. There are a lot of romance novelists who talk about writing sex, and they really talk about how no one wants to talk about, tab A goes into slot B. Like that's not what the purpose of a
It's
sex
like the
scene
IKEA
is.
version of a sex scene.
Yeah, that's right.
Get,
But also, I mean-
your Allen key. And
There's a bit missing, darling. You've got 2 of these and then you have an argument and you sleep in separate beds.
But I think often if you go back through the Bad Sex Awards, and I encourage you all to go have a look.
Yes, particularly the Morrissey one. The Morrissy one is my favourite. Shall I read the Morrissey one?
Oh, please do.
Okay, so this is actually, I don't know, it you know how you were talking before about straight people's imaginings of non-straight sex. This
Clive
is
Barker in Cabal.
Oh yeah, Clive
that
Barker.
one
He has
always
no idea.
that was abject for me.
So this is a gay man trying to write a straight sex scene.
All right.
And I feel like this is how he imagined we do it. Eliza and Ezra, I've got to take a deep breath, rolled together into one giggling snowball of full-figured copulation, screaming and shouting as they playfully bit and pulled at each other in a dangerous and clamorous roller coaster coil of sexually violent rotation, with Eliza's breasts barrel rolled across Ezra's howling mouth and the pained frenzy of his bulbous salutation extenuating his excitement as it whacked and smacked its way into every muscle of Eliza's body except for the otherwise central zone.
The Central Zone.
Central Zone. Highway to the Central Zone.
that feels to me like, as you describe, it's like that Nintendo game where they make snowballs out of people and they roll downhill and they explode. It's like
Do you mean people out of snowballs?
I don't know what did I say? Snowballs out of people.
It's more graphic.
It's more, but it's too much.
But that's in keeping with the rest of the novel, which I tried to read, and every sentence is insane. So at least it's just the way he writes or can't write.
But he's always been like a verbose explosion.
Oh yeah,
Like Russell Brand. When you read Russell Brand, he's like that as well.
But some of these writers, I feel like they pull out all the stops for their sex scenes because they feel like that's what's needed, and it kind of stands out as bad.
Again, what strikes me when you read the Bad Sex Awards is I don't think they're ever supposed to be good sex. I don't feel like, I mean, some of them are.
What are the intentions?
Bridges in Madison County was, and that was, those sex scenes are just weird. But I think there's this sense of abjection, like I said, like there's a comparison to animals a lot, but
The
in
breasts
weird
were
ways.
like young fawns, sheep frolicking in hyssop. That's Joshua Cohen's Book of Numbers. That was love
Oh
enough.
my
Yeah.
goodness.
So yes, so he's trying to describe something nice, but comparing them to animals.
Her breasts are like Bambi.
yeah, breasts like Bambi.
And then there's a lot
sheep.
of, so there's animals and then there's a lot of bodily fluids, which is abject, and then there's a lot of like really coarse language often.
Yeah, blanks all over.
A lot of blanking.
So
blanks.
what do you think the intention of an abject sex scene?
I don't know, because I don't know. I think one of the reasons the bad sex awards exist is because I'm not sure if people are clear on whether the authors mean them to be abject or not.
See, I'm writing this book about older people on Tinder, which has
Old people have amazing sex according to studies.
which is
Lots of STDs and old folks.
yeah. And so you're writing.
Harold, wear a condom.
Oh, Madge, Harold.
Close the blind, Mrs. Mangle.
But so I'm writing. So I have written actually quite a lot. But you're on that edge of they're comedic, but not too comedic because then you're just making fun. But they're also not too serious because that isn't really appropriate to what's good. So I wonder whether you look back at some of those in isolation and go, what the hell are they?
I don't know, because I do think part of the problem of the ones we've been reading out too is this otherness, like this sense that the person you're having sex with is other to you.
Yes.
And like the body being separate from the person, like someone drilling into your organs and your perfection central zone.
That's kind of the language
While
of
your
porn,
Bambi
isn't
tits
it?
try and headbutt you.
Your Bambi tits trying to headbutt you. Not a sentence I thought we'd ever put air in this podcast. But
and we're scholars. But I do think like it's complicated because I think sex is so intimate and is loaded with a lot of meaning. So there's porn and violence and control, and then, there's a difference between two people having sex and one person having sex with another person's body. I don't know. I mean, I think it's really interesting how objectification works, and I think the goal in most romance is subjectification, is this idea of putting you in the subject position of the people having sex, which I don't feel is always happening in those scenes. But they're kind of repulsive. You read them. The reason they're in the bad sex awards is because they give you that feeling.
But I guess what I'm struggling to get my head around is, are they written to be repulsive?
No, I don't know. I mean, some probably, and some I think they're trying to get to some truth. I mean, I'm going to say something controversial here.
If it's about almonds, fish, or deer.
No, it's about writers.
Right.
And then I think writers are often slightly odd people.
Yeah.
I think we're often the odd kids at school and the people who don't quite always fit in, and who maybe a lot of writers have a slightly odd relationship with themselves, other humans, and sex. And I think it can come through in fiction a lot.
Well, I think it's the same. I'm not sure if we're disproportionately odder. There's no doubt that a lot of us are.
We just
odd,
tell everyone about our oddness.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. I think a lot of people are odd in general, but we're the ones who talk about it.
Oh my goodness. If you just gathered up 100 people on the street and got them all to write a sex scene, most would be worse than these.
And weirder than we can possibly imagine.
They might involve sports, Paul, sure.
Well, have you? Yeah, almost certainly.
Gold!
Balls involving sports. But I mean, have you read amateur erotica kind of on Reddit and stuff like that?
Oh, have I told you my Harry Potter story?
Oh, no.
Are you reading fanfic now?
I was. This was a long time ago, and I didn't know fanfic was a thing. And it was so exquisitely written until Ron had sex with the giant squid. But up until then,
As long as it wasn't the spider.
up until then,
Aragog.
I thought it was the real. I thought it was the real thing. He got 20 points for Gryffindor that day. That's awful. That's awful.
I bet that tasted fishy.
But I do think you're right, because you've talked in class about that as well, that it's about getting into the psychology of the people, which none of these are doing, I don't think. Well, no, we are getting into the psychology. We just don't want to go to the psychology.
I mean, maybe they want the abject. Like, I don't know what they're aiming for. And I think that's probably Julian Goff's main complaint, is that it's judging his book on something maybe he probably wasn't intending it to do.
And I think there's no way to avoid, as you said earlier, revealing something about yourself while you're writing, because learning how to write is a journey of discovery about yourself. And there's always a first time we try something, just like in real life. So there's a first time we try writing an erotic story or erotic scene, just like there's a first time we write a action scene or whatever. And of course we'll make mistakes because nothing's perfect the first time. But sometimes you don't learn how to do it right. So so thank goodness for this podcast, can I say, because we're going to tell people how to do it right, aren't we? I mean,
Are we?
But you just get away without making mistakes. And maybe no one called Julian on his weird sex scenes. Or
But maybe
an
they're
editor
speaking
not
to
feel
their
comfortable?
weirdness.
Yeah.
But maybe the book is speaking to their way they're feeling about sex or the characters. Because, like,
Yes.
just the same year, I don't think it was the same year, Murakami was nominated, and I'm just
Murakami
reading that
is
one.
weird about women in general, just like Stephen
Yeah,
King.
I think, and I think that just comes across. Like, and
Which
maybe the
Murakami
scene.
novel was it? Does it say?
It is. I can read you the scene. It's pretty graphic. It's called Killing. I can't pronounce that. Commendator. That's terrible.
Commendatore.
Should have practiced that. Yeah,
Sounds-
thank you,
Killing
Sean.
a commendatore.
Yeah.
All I
But
can
I'll
see
read
is
it.
Sean's
I'll read it
eyebrows.
Right,
because I
wiggling up
think
and down.
I actually think this is a really good example of what I'm talking about, of like feeling kind of odd about sex, but also it being very bodily and very abject. So just bear with me. My ejaculation was violent and repeated. Again and again, semen poured from me, overflowing her vagina, turning the sheets sticky. There was nothing I could do to make it stop. If it continued, I worried I would be completely emptied out.
That's a medical problem.
Yuzu slept deeply through it all without making a sound.
What?
Her
What?
breathing even. Her sex, though, had contracted around mine and would not let go, as if it had an unshakable will of its own and was determined to wring every last drop from my body.
So he's having sex with a sleeping woman.
Yeah.
The problem anyway.
So again, I think everyone we've read out from the Bad Sex Awards, and if you read them every year, I think the two reactions, one is laughter, which that one doesn't give you, and the other one is that, like when we talked about Julian Goff's, when he's sucking on a nipple and thinking of breastfeeding. Like there are just these moments of like, oh, that's so abject. Like that is just that line where you're eliciting disgust. But I mean, sex is weird.
Sex
it
is weird and abject.
Weird,
Yeah.
abject bodily thing. It is. And you have to kind of have a sense of humour about it, I think.
Yeah.
I'm looking at some now, and here's one that starts, "Oh, glorious pubes."
Oh,
No.
glorious pubes.
No, oh, glorious. I'm on a
Hosanna.
t-shirt that says that. Hosanna.
Oh, bless.
Oh,
So how do
glorious
we,
pubes.
What is this?
What? What have
This
you found?
one has a phallic billiard rack.
No.
Yes. What?
No.
Oh.
So how do we write a good one? How
He
I mean, I think
glances
shorter is
down
better.
at the billiard rack of his penis and testicles.
The billiard rack.
Yeah, that's his first thought.
Billiards.
It's a sports ball metaphor almost.
Yes, I'm lost.
But billiards is a very unset. If you're going to pick a sport.
It's a bit violent to billiards.
Lots of holes, though.
There is a good whacking joke to be made here. Also potting. I think I can make a potting joke.
So let me repeat my previous. What was that?
My glasses. I hit the microphone.
He's so busy laughing.
Alex has
I'm
collapsed.
sorry.
He's headbutting the microphone.
I've gone.
So we've got a couple of minutes left
Sorry.
to give our students.
Please don't be
advice.
listening to this one, students.
I'm so sorry,
Please don't.
everybody.
How do we write a good one? But it's a bit like how do we have good sex? How long is a piece of string? There's,
Well, I wouldn't recommend the billiard table.
No. Well, I'm sure I've read romances though where they do it on a billiard table.
certainly porn. It's popular in porn.
What,
Well, I
billiards?
think porn is the rack
I'm
is.
focusing on the wrong thing.
I think
Nice
porn.
rack, she said.
For me, I think porn is part of the problem. I
Yeah,
think we've
absolutely.
got a pornified representation of sexuality.
Yes.
And then we have a kind of a weirdness about bodies, like a kind of wanting to sanitize bodies. And, if you think about the media representation of it, everything's airbrushed and prettified
And separated.
Yeah.
When I think of good sex, I don't think of two bodies doing things to each other. It's more of a, oh God, I'm revealing too much about myself.
Yeah, anyway, I think for me,
Thank you.
okay,
Moving right along.
I'll just move that one along. We won't
I was
talk
going to
really.
linger in it for a
Yeah,
while.
you were just
We'll
leaving
just
it.
sit
Let
there.
him stew in it.
Yeah, as it were. Oh God.
We'll pretend we're asleep, Sean. While you do that. That's called rape, people.
Yes.
It's not okay.
That's it. Consent is another aspect to some of these scenes. You're going to go, well, what are you doing?
Yeah, but I do think if you're writing sex, there are different scenes, right, for different novels. And if there are literary books where the sex is not supposed to be arousing or titillating or and I think a lot of these fall into that category. And then there's erotica to get you off, which is probably more graphic. And then I think in a lot of fiction, sex should be about character development or relationship development, and more has to be going on than insert tab A into slot B.
Or at least make it quick, please, so we can skip over it, which I'm sure a lot of people think during bad sex. I want to get to the next chapter of my life.
Don't worry, I'll make it quick, said Sean. Wow.
So Amy, let me ask you a question. When your sex scenes are being edited, what kind of editorial feedback do you get? Longer, harder, more?
I don't get a lot. I don't get a lot of feedback on those scenes, I have to say. Mine aren't terribly long. I was asked to put at the end of Marrying Off Morgan McBride, the sex scene at the very end, I was asked to write that one in. They want a bit more sex. I don't know, because I think different audiences are different. Like some books have a lot of sex and some not much. I'm not really big on like hugely graphic, long sex scenes. Again, I think this goes back to Helm's Deep. Sorry about the pun.
The Battle of Helm's Deep.
His helm entered her deep.
Central zone. But I think, like you were saying, that's a paragraph and it allows for imagination. And I think, there's a lot of studies showing that the brain is the biggest sex organ.
Yes.
And so you have to leave people some room for imagination, I think. So for me, I think you kind of give the setup and do the thing, but you don't want it to go on forever.
In real life and in books.
What was Sean's quote about make it quick?
Make it quick.
Quick, for God's sake, please. Not like Murakami.
I quite like Murakami as an author, but that is a very not okay.
I haven't read the book though, so maybe he's just a gross rapist and we're not supposed to think it's the case.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, context.
Yeah, and I think that's Julian Goff's point, is that these quotes are taken entirely out of context of the book, and we're judging them as though they're supposed to be titillating, arousing scenes, and possibly they're not.
And we don't know.
Yep.
Yeah.
On the other hand, how many pages was Julian Goff's sex scene?
Oh, I don't know.
It's like 2,500 words or something. If you're going to spend
quite a
that
lot.
much time on it, you're asking for trouble. I don't think any sex scene needs to be that long. Just like any action scene needs to be that long, or any dream sequence needs to be that long. There are always exceptions to all those rules.
And I just think the reason these things end up in the Bad Sex Awards is that they take something that is supposed to be fun, like sex is supposed to be a fun act that people enjoy. Not everyone has to. Obviously, there are people who are asexual who are not into sex, but it's like excuse me for bringing fish back into it, but it's like it's got like eating, right? Eating should be fun, right? You should enjoy the meals you're eating, and if you're having sex, you should enjoy it. It should be mutually enjoyable. It shouldn't be weird. It shouldn't be rapey. You shouldn't be so hung up on the bodily fluids that it's gross. Like, I think that's my reaction to those scenes.
And it should be as meaningful as you want it to be.
Yeah.
For some people, it's really intensely meaningful and profound with some people and for some people.
But either way,
yeah.
it should be the person you're having sex with should be a person. Do you know? Like, it shouldn't be like a lot of these books make one of the characters, like there's always like the main character and then the person they're having sex with. Where it turns me off is when they have so objectified or made abject the person, like it becomes a body they're having sex with.
So don't do that, people.
Yeah, people.
Unless it's a character that.
And please make sure she's awake.
Yeah, please. Yeah, good life
awake
advice.
and saying yes.
Good life advice.
Don't kill her. That's good advice too.
Yeah, try not to kill her. But I guess unless there's a character that is, like I'm thinking of Patrick Bateman or someone like that.
Oh, yeah, or Nabokov. Like if you think about Lolita, like Humbert in Lolita, like you're not supposed to think he's a good guy.
No, that's right. Yeah, so there is place for that, but
yeah. So I think the interesting it's context and intention and respect.
Just like real
We're
life.
probably out of time now, are we?
Yep.
I think I'm hosting. I forgot.
Yeah.
I'll be wrapping up.
You've got to finish us off, Amy.
This is not to be biologically determinist, but there's the guy going make it quick and the woman forgetting to end it. So on that note, it's been really fun talking the Bad Sex Awards with you guys. We'll have to check in on them next year.
I'm going to try and get one. I'm going to try and win one.
Win the Bad Sex
I want to win the
Awards.
Bad Sex Awards.
I would like to see that.
Yeah.
They're
That's
very
my
popular.
life goal.
I think some people might try.
I'm sure.
I think so. You get
so
a
much
lot
press.
of publicity.
Yeah.
Yes.
So okay, what can you think of an animal metaphor that would be in the Bad Sex Awards?
His raging stallion plunged into the hot river of her passion.
Now we're getting back to Tolkien here, aren't we? I'm
It's
just
true.
thinking of the river.
Sorry, that was a Western. I was writing a Western, wrong genre. It's because I've been reading Morgan McBride.
The least attractive animal, like an anteater or a
Badger.
Pangolin.
yeah.
Or an octopus.
On that note, thanks for
Hey,
joining
wait,
us.
Amy, you haven't done it. You've got it. You made us do
I
it.
said pangolin.
You know, she got pangolin.
Like you can stroke at the smooth scales of their pangolin, Sean.
Hello.
So definitely on that note, we're going to fade out, and we'd like you to imagine your own animals that should never be mentioned in a sex scene. Anyway, what do we say, Alex?
A walrus would be pretty bad.
Happy riding? No.
Happy riding.
A hunky Scotsman with thighs like a flock of sheep strikes sparks with Bryony, a squid farmer competing in the national sport. Hotter than a steaming haggis will make you lift your kilt and toss your caber. 5 blanks out of 5, Boiling Hearts podcast. Swinging the Log by Morag McSproggan, available from all bookshops now. With a free copy of Elbow magazine for a limited time only.
Right, then you better say something funny for the outtakes now.
Oh, there's going to be lots of penis today.
What's a good one for sex sound? Not that one.
No. Probably the rock music is probably.
Yeah. Welcome.
Bad sex tonight.
Oh, that's good sex.
And that
That one
sadly
too.
appropriate.
What you don't want to hear during a sex scene.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.